Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session of Court of Spades. As always, I am Emily, and I will be your dungeon master for the evening, as well as your tiefling mythical beast, but maybe not for much longer. Tonight, we will not be joined by Detroit, who plays our lovely bard, Peter Longbottom, but we will be filling in his place with some specific role-playing choices. But I am joined by my other two party members, so why don't y'all introduce yourselves?
Hi guys, it's Nat. I play the human druid Jezebel Emmerich.
Hi, I'm Liz. I play Marin Marlios, the half-elf wizard.
And I will, I guess, recap what happened last session. Uh, you guys emerged triumphant from your final battle with the hags, although it was a bittersweet victory, as you found yourself down two party members. But Gunby, who was lost before the battle had even begun, and Nyx, who you now carry the body of with you as you return, accompanied by Jack, back to the town of Burmoor, where you have been greeted by two guards. Ooh, I'm sorry if you hear my doggy barking in the background. She's being really loud. You are greeted by two guards who confiscated your weapons and basically arrested you on sight. I'm sorry. She's very loud.
It's okay.
But yeah, so you are now being escorted through town by these guards who are leading you by shackles in a nice little daisy chain as you approach and enter the town prison. So give me 1 second to pump up that good prison ambiance. Groovy. And let's begin.
Ooh, that was really loud, sorry.
You're good. So I think to start out the session, I kind of want to know, like, first and foremost, how are your characters feeling about, like, not to, like, we're not going to break the fourth wall too much and reveal too much of inner thoughts here, but on a very surface level, what are the, like, what's the demeanor of your characters as you enter this prison, escorted by two Crown's militia?
I think Jez's had, as they have been for a majority of the walk back, not not definitely not themselves. They're sticking pretty close to Jack, as close as this daisy chain will allow them to. And yeah, they kind of doing the middle distance thing.
So kind of like zoned out, almost like not quite there.
There's a lot that's happened.
Yeah.
And it's starting to sink in that, yeah, all of that actually just happened. And this prison sentence is now just one more thing on top of that.
Alrighty. Would you like to talk about Marin?
I think in a very similar vein, Marin is kind of not particularly looking at anything, as he's just kind of dragged along. And not, like, clearly resisting, but also, like, maybe, wow, what just came out of my mouth? Maybe, noticeably not walking as fast as he should be, particularly intentionally.
An outside observer would also note that Peter seems to kind of reflect what seems to be the overarching mood of the party, which is, holy shit, that really did just happen, and here we are now. Not being hailed as heroes, but chained together as you are led through a dank and dirty prison. Nyx's demeanor is dead.
Too soon, too soon.
Fuck off, Emma.
I'm sorry. So, Bio, shh. Stop, please. She has a lot to say.
Let her play Dungeons and Dragons.
God, Emily.
I won't take that from someone who won't let their cat play with their dice.
He will take them and hide them, and I paid a lot of money for these.
Hopefully she shuts up soon. It's to add to the creepy ambiance of this prison. There's a chained up dog somewhere in the distance who won't stop fucking barking.
Guard dog. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a guard dog. No, but what you do notice as you enter this prison, it's kind of it's in what is considered to be like downtown Grimoire. It's not the nicest area of Grimoire. Grimoire in general is not really like it's not so residential heavy. Generally, if you're looking to like settle down for like a long-term family type situation, the kingdoms that typically are more suitable for that are either Haven or even more so Oromir. Grimoire is a very industrial-based town, so there's a lot of business there, but a lot less like housing and just general village type parts of it. However, this is you're in the heart of Grimoire. This is the same place where you have been to the Times Square, the town square where like Elan's shop is, and all the other little, like the tavern that you've been to, places like that. This is in that same area, except this is more on the outskirts of it, so it's less populated. There's kind of not a lot of people or really life in this part of town. This is definitely like basically the part of the main city of Grimoire that is kind of known to be just where the militia station like guards and train soldiers and hold prisoners. It's a very military part of this town. So nobody tends to go near there. So as you walk, luckily you don't have to feel the eyes of onlookers, really. You pass a few curious wanderers, but the first one you see looks to be a little day drunk, and the second one barely glances your way as he kind of quietly shuffles past you. Oh my god, I'm gonna kill my dog. The prison itself is not massive. Althane in general is not really like, your function as the court in general is to basically nip crime in the bud half the time. When you're not doing a big mission like the one you just went on, it's usually stopping like petty crime from occurring in the first place. as well as the job of the militia. So you have two forces working in harmony to make sure that crime isn't a major factor in these kingdoms. However, there are every once in a while people who slip between the cracks and end up here in this prison. Grimoire Prison is small and frankly one of the lesser kept parts of the town. So as you enter, there is very dim torchlight that is lighting it here, and a staircase that kind of takes you down a bit towards the ground. You notice that as you walked in, there was a part of the building that was on the same kind of level as most of the buildings around here. It was about one story, but at the bottom of that story, you could see the indications of barred windows and stuff like that, indicating that the cells were below whatever this first floor was. And most of the actual body of the prison is like partially underground. Not completely underground. It's not like how court is underground. This is more so just like a you will barely have the means to escape if you try to do so. As you enter, the guards lead you directly to that staircase, not really giving you much time to glance around on what is the first floor, but if you were being rather bored and until she notices you enter and she perks up to scribble a bit more fervently, pretending to do work, supposedly. As and Marin, you feel one of the guards kind of like tap the back of your legs a little bit with the edge of their sword, not the sharp edge, like the flat edge of their sword. It's also still in a sheath. He kind of like bumps the back of your legs and he's like, "All right, move it. Keep your feet up. We don't have all day." Wow.
I don't reply, but I'll walk slightly faster.
Yeah. We're
They
just
lead
gonna
you
go with this.
They lead you down, and you notice that the walls here they seem almost damp with some unknown liquid. It's mostly just water, but the ground is completely covered in like bits of straw and kind of like a fine layer of dust. It's all a broken, uneven type heavy cobblestone, and it goes from the floor up to the walls. It's all one solid gray color. The only warmth that this prison provides is from the soft glow of the torches that are hanging on the wall to illuminate your path as you proceed down the hallway past the cells. As you kind of pass these cells, there's not much to observe. It doesn't seem as though there are anybody inhabiting these cells in particular. Like I said, there's not a lot of crime in Grimoire, and you're most likely some of the first people that they have been arrested in a good while. You hear like a bit of scuffling up ahead of you. Not scuffling as in fighting, but more so like the sound of someone pacing. But before you can identify anyone up ahead, the guard suddenly leads you around a sharp left turn, and you are no longer in the hallway with the cells, but rather in a hallway that leads to a single door.
Okay.
Alright, how to sound British and not Australian. A Guide by Emily. Here I go. Alright. Nope, it's still... I failed. Step 1.
I believe in you. You got this. Give it another go.
I have to, like, try to channel, like, I watched Harry Potter my whole childhood. Alright, so... let's see. 3 of you are going to stand off to the side here, and he kind of, motions to there's, like, benches that are barely there, as the hallway kind of ends, and then it gives out to what looks to be almost like a waiting room, except it's barely wider than the hallway itself. And the benches on the side of these walls are, like, basically 2 planks of wood being suspended by chains from the wall. So definitely not providing any sort of comfort. And attached to these benches are those kind of shackles that are, like, chained to the floor so that you can't leave or make any sudden movements to leave. And one by one, the guard unlocks your shackles that are linking you together and then places you in the shackles attached to this bench. And the other guard stops you, Merritt, and goes, not you. We have special things for people like you. And he kind of wiggles your wand in front of your face before, like, tilting his head up. And before you can even react to the switch from the shackles you were in originally to the new ones, you are placed in shackles that feel not only heavier, but far more restrictive. They have a lead-lined silver plating that keeps your hand stiff, and so your fingers can only bend at the tip. So if you were to try and bend your fingers, you could bend your thumb all the way in, but the 4 fingers, your 4 other fingers only bend at the tip.
So kind of like really awful gloves.
Yeah, really bad mittens. Fingerless mittens.
Somebody had one job and they did really badly. That feels discriminatory, though. I mean,
like, it's
why
just...
Marin in
Marin just
particular?
fucking glares daggers at this guy. But he doesn't say anything.
He tosses your wand back in the kind of knapsack that he has that is holding a lot of the smaller weapons of your party, such as Nyx's dagger and anyone else who had a small weapon. I don't know your inventories. I should really have your character sheets more at
Marin has like 3 knives.
Yeah, okay, so all of Marin's knives. Jez, the other one, is actually kind of leaning on your quarterstaff because he's... How tall is Jez?
Jez is 5'1".
Yeah, so though Jez's quarterstaff comes a little bit above their own head, which is, I assume, how you imagine it.
Yeah.
It is not... This is, like, to this guy's shoulder, so he's actually leaning on it, kind of. Not giving... These guys clearly don't have a lot of experience personally in the field of magic, because they don't seem to be treating your magical artifacts with much care or regard as to whether or not they will break or be damaged.
If he loses his ass, it's not my fault. So we're just chilling.
Yeah, I will say to also kind of retcon a small thing, but basically mention something that happened as you entered this area. Jack was actually cuffed, like, you guys were daisy chained, as in, like, those kind of shackles where you're all attached to each other and being marched. But Jack was, shackled individually, and he was actually taken with Nyx's body to a room on the first floor. He was following behind the rest of you, and right before he went to follow you down into the body of the prison, he was stopped and sent to a small room on the first floor where you lost sight of him as Nyx's body was carried by 2 other officers who appeared, and they disappeared into a room that you cannot see into from the first floor.
All right.
So, who wants to go first?
What? First.
Don't play dumb with me for the interrogation. You've been arrested?
Just as a point of order, it's like the second that Marin stopped glaring at this guy for a couple of fucking seconds, his eye was completely unfocused again, and that he's just not looking at anything in particular.
Okay.
Or saying anything for that matter.
Okay. All right, well, you were the first one to talk, so you're up first.
Do I get to keep sitting here, or are we going somewhere else?
He presses a kind of release with his foot, and then sticks a key into a keyhole that has appeared at the base of your feet, and you stand up, still shackled by your hands, but no longer by your feet. And he opens a door, and behind the door is a shockingly bright light.
Not a fan of that.
And he kind of, like, leads, like, takes his hand and makes sure that you walk through the door before closing it behind you.
So I'm in a room by myself?
You are in a room by yourself.
Huh. What's in this room?
Wiz, we talked about this briefly. Did we decide whether or not I should have you deafen yourself?
We decided yes.
Okay.
So I'll deafen myself.
So,
Bye,
Wiz will be deafened for this conversation. Okay.
Oh boy. It's intimate in here.
Nat.
Yeah.
As Jez enters this room, it takes her eyes a second to adjust, because from the 4 corners of this room, there are 4 light orbs positioned. It's not a very big room. It's what you would probably expect from an interrogation room, as the guard had indicated. But in the 4 corners of the room are 4 glowing orbs of light, which I think you would recognize. You have dancing lights, right?
I do, I believe. That sounds like something I have and have definitely looked at but not had an opportunity to use.
Even with a basic knowledge of magic, I think you would recognize it, because it's a simple cantrip that a lot of people can do. And as your eyes kind of adjust, outside of the kind of shifting clash of the chains around your own wrists, you are standing behind a table, which is on the behind a chair positioned at a table, across from which, seated across from you, is Ace. Only he's not. He doesn't look like himself. He physically, he has the same face, the same like eyes, everything. Like, this is definitely Ace. You even recognize the scar across his nose from the first time you saw him without his mask, which was when you were invited to join this party. So this is unquestionably Ace sitting across from you.
Mm-hmm.
But he looks up at you with a empty, unfeeling gaze. It's completely detached from seeing you. And as clothes, he is wearing a deep blue, very expensive looking tunic, essentially. It is embroidered with very fine silver thread and very, very fancy. When you've seen Ace, he's been in basically street clothes. The only time you've ever seen him in any kind of business regalia is on times that he's returned from personal visits with the Queen, but it was never to the extent what he is wearing. He is wearing what looks to be a fancier version of militia guard wear.
Okay.
And you notice indicators. There are stripes on his, like, pins with stripes on them on his breast, on the chest of his tunic, indicating his rank. And though you have not personally been to Grimoire frequently, as your own trips here were kind of more reconnaissance missions where you would go to Haven and then come back with information for brief visits, so you're not exactly familiar with the Grimoire specific Crown's militia.
Mm-hmm.
You can recognize that this is the indication of a very high ranked general, potentially a captain. You know our military terms better than me, so I'm gonna make a damn fool of myself, but
No, you're fine.
he is a very high ranking official in the militia.
Yeah.
He bears the crest of Grimoire's Queen, and on his shoulders are what are they called? Those shoulder things that have tassels on them.
Shoulder cords? I don't know if that's what they're officially called, but I don't think it begins with an E. It's like a pat.
Yeah, it's like epaulettes. Something like that. It's a French word.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about, though. That's like what he has, except they are silver and draped over his shoulder. And he kind of nods in acknowledgement, and with a very monotone voice, gestures for you to take the seat in front of him and says, "Let's begin."
Yeah, okay. Jez goes and takes a seat at the table, I guess.
Okay. As soon as Jez takes a seat, Ace pulls out a small black notepad and flips open the front cover and turns to a fresh page before looking up at Jez again.
Ooh.
State your full name.
Jezebel Amarek? Holy fuck. Sorry, I am mimicking you, apparently.
Australian's a really hard accent to not do once you do it. You watch as he nods and scribbles something down on his paper
Mm-hmm.
before looking back up at Jez. Do you understand why you've been arrested?
Well, according to Jack, whoops, we have broken a law that was not in place prior to our leaving Grimoire. And that being some sort of city ban on movement. I've forgotten the word I want to use.
Give me a second, I have to find a single scrap of information that I really need to combine my documents. Okay. Court. There we go. There we go. Okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Okay, I was right. I was double checking something. Ace kind of tilts his head back and forth for a second, furrowing his brow a slight bit to kind of consider what you've said, and he goes, there was a continent-wide lockdown initiated, and any residents traveling between the towns had 2 days to comply and return to the nearest kingdom before they would be intercepted. There was leniency with this, of course, for travelers who are making longer distant travels, but they would have been notified in advance. So what I need to know is what exactly your party was doing outside of Grimoire a month after the lockdown was initiated.
Quick question,
Yeah.
So it is fall now. We left, like, midsummer?
Yeah, like midsummer, like headed towards the end of summer, but it is mid-autumn right now.
So we're talking upwards of a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, over a month.
Yeah, that is what you could
Okay.
infer from him saying.
Just wanted to double check that, given that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what day of the week it is. And just kind of like pats the table for a second, trying to figure out how they want to answer this question, because technically we don't exist. I'm not sure I trust this ace. Well, a couple of points, I guess. One, we left in the summer, and two, never were warned that we're gonna be that this was happening. We were kind of in the middle of the Evermore, and our connection was spotty. Call it the quiet zone, maybe.
Ace kind of like furrows his brow momentarily before returning to a kind of neutral stare and nods before writing something down in his notebook. After he's done writing, he looks back up. This Jack you refer to, is this your employer? Is this the person who permitted you to travel between the kingdoms? Or are you referring to Cecil Belmont, the elven cleric?
Oh god, I hate this. Oh,
Accompanying you.
yes.
It was not a yes or no question.
I mean, he's an acquaintance. I have never called him Cecil, but he came for us. We kind of all almost died.
What?
Kind of exploded something on accident.
You notice that Ace is like, it almost looks like his eye twitches for a moment, before he kind of scribbles something down in his notebook, a very unreadable blank expression on his face.
Am I bothering him yet?
What was your goal upon arrival in Grimoire?
Well, I'd kind of like to sleep. But are you talking about literally today arriving in Grimoire?
You were traveling in a continent that only allows, I don't know what accent I'm doing, travelers with an intended goal, such as merchants looking to sell supply, or travelers who are seeking shelter or establishing a new home, or perhaps seeking some kind of employment. What was your goal in Grimoire that permitted you to travel outside of the kingdoms?
Well, then I guess it's several-fold. I was looking to come home and take a nap because I am very tired. It has been a long several months, apparently. I was considering going to, holy shit, what is it called? The one at the foot of the mountains. It's not Haven, it's fuck. Oh, I should go just see if I can find this real quick. Whatever the one with in the mountains is. City in the mountains. Anyway, I'll just I was looking to continue traveling, I guess. I am
refer to?
the city that's in the mountains that's like the gem capital of the world.
Well, Grimoire is like technically like
I'm trying to
in clan that and like harvest.
run that by me again. You cut out. Sorry.
Ironforge is the like dwarven colony that lives in the mountains.
Okay, that might be what we had discussed. We discussed Jez like going into the mountains to try and get stuff for the object they're building.
Okay.
Um,
There's
I'll run with that.
there's
I think
there's
that's
Elder's
right.
Bane, but that's not at the base of the mountains. That's the capital of like that's the magic capital.
No, I
Okay.
think it was. You said it was
Ironforge.
Ironforge. That sounds right. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway.
Now that I've completely derailed the conversation, I was going to Ironforge to study and get a job, I guess, and then got sidetracked here because there's a bunch of really interesting magic stuff here, and so I decided to stay for a while, and now I do errands for people, so somebody asked me to take care of something. Well, they kind of asked me to take care of it themselves because they sent me this invitation, and I go, and then I get stuck there, and I'm stuck there for apparently 2 months, and now I'm back. I have no idea what has happened in 2 months, except now I am in trouble, so maybe I'll just do what I was originally doing, which is going to the mountains and learning about rocks.
Your story has a lot of inconsistencies. Can you provide a name of your employer or the person who signed your travel documents?
So this is raises an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Did Jess ever get that at the beginning? I'm assuming not, because they just kind of wandered for several years.
Like, what do you mean? Like Ace's name?
Yeah, so is this literally like, is he referring to travel documents forever? Or
no, there's like
just for the past month?
There's like Alphane travel documents that you get signed in order to leave a kingdom and travel to another kingdom. Or just like travel out like on the continent outside of a kingdom.
Okay,
because while the kingdoms are kind of expansive, there is a lot of territory in between the kingdoms that is just kind of like no man's land because it's not livable. Like there's nothing there. So you have to have a specific like permit, which Ace gave you a permit to leave the city when you left the city.
Yeah. Okay, so this is
he like gave you forged merchant documents that basically said that you were like a traveling pack of merchants.
Oh shit. Who has that? Cuz did we all have one?
Yeah, it like each of you have an individual one. It's not like it's not like a group registers for it. You have to individually get permission.
Wow, I 100% missed that. So
that's also like he gave that to you guys along with the letter of like diplomacy that was supposed to be given to the head of the circus to request a cease and desist.
Yeah, I think we gave that to Marion and then he like ripped it up or something like that. Yeah. Ooh, I completely and totally missed that. Let me make a quick note of that so I even though it's probably never going to be important again. Wow. I should really keep better notes.
It's okay. I don't take good notes, and I'm the DM.
Anyway,
Anyway.
I guess in that case, it just pulls it out because they probably don't remember. They probably never looked at this thing and like actually read over who they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing. So probably pulls it out of one of their little pocket pouches and like flattens it out on the table because it's seen, I guess, several months of being smushed under skulls and rocks and leaves and stuff.
Well, let's be clear here. To you and everything on you, like, the time that you spent in the circus felt like maybe a few days.
Yeah, I got that.
So, like, this paper hasn't spent months in your bag. It's spent,
Okay,
like...
so this is just, like, time fuckery that we are only...
Yeah, it's not like you guys are 2 months older.
Cool.
Like, you didn't age 2 months or do anything like that. Like, your hair isn't 2 months longer.
Man, that would
or
suck.
anything like that. Yeah, like it's
okay. Cool.
The for circus was fucked.
You're telling me I almost died a couple times.
Hey, I did.
Okay.
Anyway,
so well, I mean, it's still probably you know, several days worth of fighting, and just kind of shoved it in there.
It's been jostled in there with some like dirt and like plants and a skull.
Look,
just
Harold is important.
They confiscated weapons, but they did not confiscate the Naga skull.
Look. Hopefully they don't judge me for the strange things that I don't judge them for the strange things they do. So
Ace kind of pulls the paper to his side of the table and literally glances at it for maybe half a second before scribbling something down in his notebook.
Yeah, he probably knows what he says. What it says. He probably paid attention to that.
And then he folds up his notebook and closes it and looks back at Jez and says, Jezebel Amaric?
Yes?
You have violated the lockdown and the curfew.
This is what I have been told.
Of Grimoire residence. But because you are in possession of documentation from Queen Palace, you'll spend 1 night in prison and will be released in the morning as a period of holding to make sure that you have no ill intent upon entering our kingdom. You are dismissed.
This is fine, thank you. Bye, Ace.
He shows no recognition when you say that.
I figured, you know. We're living.
Jez is like, hey buddy, and it's just like, fuck. Who is this? Jez who? Don't know them.
This is fine. Everything's fine. Jez will cry on them later. Assuming Ace shows up again. Maybe he's dead forever. He's been brainwashed. We don't know. Baby, come back. Oh, hug me. Liz, you cannot hear this. Wiz, come
Wiz
back.
literally DM'd me, like, right this second.
Baby, come back.
I'm back.
Welcome
There you
back.
are. I was like, Wiz DM'd me, but they didn't unmute. Oh no.
It took me a second.
I know.
Oh. Now it is my turn to be deafened.
Marin, you watch as Jez leaves the interrogation room, seemingly unbothered by the events of what occurred in said room. And the guard kind of turns and raises an eyebrow and looks between you and Peter. And for a moment, Peter kind of glances at you before, like, shrinking in and looking away and avoiding eye contact with the guard. So the guard kind of, like, heaves a sigh and rolls his eye, and he's like, all right. All right, then. You. Wizard boy. On you go. And he hits the latch in the ground and sticks the key in the shackles on the ground, and your feet are released from their holding, though your hands remain shackled and restrained.
As Marin passes me to go into the room, Jez just kind of mutters, like, it's not who you think it is.
Marin isn't quite looking at you still.
That's fine.
Is this guard guiding me, or
He's holding open the door, but if, like, he didn't stand you up off the bench, so...
because Marin isn't moving.
The second, like, Marin hesitates, the guard gets impatient and kind of reaches down and, like, yanks Marin up by the, like, his collar and kind of pushes him towards the cell until he's, like, stumbling into the interrogation room, where the guard slams the door behind him. And it is Nat's turn to deafen.
Alright, I don't know that I can actually deafen myself, because if my audio isn't playing on the desktop, it won't record it. So, I'm gonna take my earbuds out, and hopefully you guys trust me enough to believe that I'm gonna go get water and then not put them back in when I get back.
I trust you, so...
Alright. Have fun, Wiz. Don't die.
I'll try.
So, as Marin stumbles into this room, you're met with the same sight that Jez was met with, which is a blinding, unnatural light. It's not the same as the kind of warm fire of the dim fire of the torches that had guided you through the previous hallways. This is, as soon as your eyes kind of refocus, and not too well, but enough to recognize that there are 4 glowing orbs of light in every corner of this fairly small room. The interior of this room is white. It's made from a kind of marble, like a white marble, as opposed to the gray, dull cobblestone that the rest of this prison was made out of. And in front of you is a chair at a table across from which sits Ace. What is Marin's initial reaction, if any?
What is he?
Ace looks up, and you see the slightest hint of an eyebrow twitch before his face returns to a completely neutral state. Ace looks like a completely different person than you've seen before. His hair is well kept and slicked back instead of its normal red tangled mess. He's clearly presenting his face, upon which he has the recognizable scar across his nose, proving that this is definitely the Ace you know. His clothing, instead of his normal casual street type attire, is a navy blue tunic. Cinched at his waist is a belt that holds a hilt to a very elaborate looking sword, the hilt of which is very intricate and detailed. And the tunic itself is embellished with silver embroidery that kind of curls in fancy patterns across his chest, until you notice that upon his breast he has the mark of the Queen's Crown Militia and a few stripes that indicate his rank, of which he is very high. The shoulders of the tunic are a silver epaulette with rope, however you pronounce that word. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but with tassels that kind of drape down, and on one shoulder he has two cords. And he just gestures, barely moving his hand to motion to the chair in front of him, as he says, "Let's begin."
Marion stands for probably another full minute before sitting down.
Ace just kind of observes him. The only real movement he gives is you watch his eyes kind of size you up, take you in, analyze you a little bit, but his expression is stoic and unreadable. Very neutral and unbothered. As soon as you take a seat, he pulls out a small black notebook and turns to a fresh page, producing a pen in his hand as he looks at that same blank expression. "State your full name."
Marion doesn't reply.
After about 30 seconds of dead air, Ace kind of clicks his pen. Clicks? Just kidding. He dips it. And without really any noticeable change in his demeanor, goes, "Sir, I'm going to need you to state your full name."
Marion still doesn't reply.
After a moment, give me one moment. Hmm. After a moment, you hear a soft, intruding voice in your mind that simply says, "Speak."
I don't, I don't know what to do.
As soon as you speak, Ace looks down at his notepad and jots something down before looking back up at you. Marin Marlios, are you aware of why you were arrested outside of Grimoire today?
I couldn't help.
As soon as you speak again, Ace looks down at his notebook and jots something down. To be more specific, you violated
I'm back, sorry.
Okay. To be more specific, you were in violation of a lockdown administered continent-wide between the four kingdoms of Althane, and you violated curfew, and that is why you are being imprisoned. Do you understand?
Marin doesn't reply.
Were you sent here under the orders of someone who had malintent with the citizens of Grimoire or anyone within our walls?
Marin has been looking at the table this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And at that, he looks at Ace really for the first time, other than glancing him over. Only yours.
Make an insight check.
Okay. Ooh! Insight. 26.
As your gaze locks with Ace's and you mutter those words, you notice a distinct but subtle. You recognize it as a almost instinctual flinch of pain. And his gaze seems to kind of soften for a moment before he turns his eyes down to his notebook and jots something down. What was your goal upon arriving here in Grimoire?
Marin doesn't reply.
Citizens of Althane and all visitors are required to have travel permits that will allow them to pass between the kingdoms under strict guidance and orders. Present your papers and explain why you were sent to travel outside of the kingdoms, or what you are hoping to achieve.
Marin doesn't. Oh shit. Just kidding. All right, Marin doesn't reply. I was gonna cast something and then I remembered. Marin. Are his wrists bound in front of him or behind him?
Behind him.
Okay, Ace can probably see his shoulders move, like he's trying to do something with his hands.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't get there. He's looking at the table again.
Ace stands up from the table and kind of towers over Marin for a second, just looking down at him with that blank stare, before moving to the opposite side of the table and opening Marin's bag and reaching in to pull out the documentation, the forged documentation of merchant travel papers that Ace himself had administered to the entire party before they left for the circus the second time. He takes a seat across from Marin and places the papers on the table, glancing at them before jotting something down into his notes. The elven cleric that accompanied you, Cecil Belmont, is he involved with any kind of maniacal organizations? Or was he acting as a guide?
Marin doesn't reply.
What is your relationship to the deceased tiefling traveling with your party as you entered the city?
Marin stands up. And I think probably knocks over the chair behind him and makes full eye contact with Ace. And again, looks like he's trying to pull at his hands, but he doesn't say anything. Even after he realizes that it's really not going to work. His dual strength score of 10.
Ace kind of just looks at Marin for a moment, and his eyes kind of glance down to where Marin's hands go behind his back, and then his eyes meet Marin's again. Before he looks down and writes something in his notebook.
Can I see what he's writing?
Make a perception check.
Now that Marin's actually looking at him. Oh my god, really good rolls. I just rolled 2 18s in a row.
Nice. Isn't your insight modifier the same? I mean, the same as your perception? Or are they different?
No, they're different.
Never mind.
24?
24?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the last one should have been a 26 instead of a 27, but
But it doesn't
probably
matter.
earns the same result, so
Yeah, it does.
I think I just mathed poorly.
You can only really catch a glimpse of it from this angle now that you're looking down at Ace. But as he writes in his book, you notice that the answers he's writing don't match up to anything that you've said so far, and really not anything that he said before. It seems like he's almost just answering the questions and writing them down.
I'm muted. What did he write for that last one? Or does it not match up?
The question matches up. All the questions match up.
Oh, okay.
I guess you did get a 24, so. Before Ace closes his notebook, which he does as soon as he is finished writing the last response to that question, you notice that he has written the words, "No direct relation, traveling companion." He closes up the notebook and looks up at Marin, standing up to meet him, his eye level, and actually standing a bit taller than Marin. Marin Marlios, you violated lockdown and you violated curfew, but otherwise have proven no threat to Grimoire. You will be held here overnight as a period of observation to ensure that you intend no ill harm before being released tomorrow morning. That's all. You're dismissed.
Marin doesn't move. He's just fucking glaring and pulling at his wrists as hard as he can.
Ace makes his way around Marin and knocks on the door that Marin entered twice before the door opens, and the guard from outside enters to grab Marin by the shackles and drag him back out of the room. Ace calmly steps to the side and watches as Marin is dragged past him with an unreadable expression on his face. And you're back in the hall. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, I'm back.
So, you watch as Marin is dragged forcefully
Wow.
by the guard out of the interrogation room.
Let me tell you, I literally was sitting here the entire time thinking, God, Marin's gonna fuck shit up. He's gonna die. I'm gonna be the only one left. He's gonna be a piece of
He's
shit,
not gonna get himself
smartass.
killed.
He's gonna be a smartass and get somebody pissed off at him, and then he's gonna get sucker punched and die.
One punch is all it takes to kill a wizard.
Anyway, he's back. He's being dragged. Tell me more, DM.
He's on his feet.
He's on his feet. He's not unconscious or anything like that. He seems to be at first resisting, not fighting, but like just not willing to leave the room. Before the guard kind of forcefully guides him back towards the bench where he is seated firmly next to Jez.
Mm-hmm.
And secured by the feet again on the bench. Alright, half point. Yup. And the guard unlocks Peter's feet.
That's so rude.
And ushers Peter in. Peter goes pretty quietly. He seems to have lost a little bit of that quick wit in response. He's definitely visibly shaken, and he enters the interrogation room. The guards position themselves across the room and just kind of watch the two of you. They don't seem particularly interested or intense. They're just kind of like lazily watching you, and the one guard is playing with Marin. You recognize one of your knives. He's just kind of throwing it up in the air and twirling, catching it. The other guard kind of yawns and glances around, watching as a moth kind of flutters towards a torch on the wall before dying a fiery death. And its body spirals to the ground, landing at his feet. He kind of chuckles. Stupid creature.
Can I have that?
The guard kind of frowns and like, he's like, "Hey, who told you could speak? Shut your yap."
Hey. Okay. Is Peter between Marin and I?
No, Peter's in the room.
Peter's in the interrogation.
I was past tense. Is there a gap between Marin and I now, or is Marin next to me?
Marin's next to Jez on the end of the bench. Jez was like in the center.
Oh, cool. Jez kind of like elbows Marin and like leans on him a little bit, and making very like just staring at the guard, just like, I always thought that everybody was so nice here, and now I am having second thoughts.
Marin doesn't reply to you, Jez, and doesn't quite seem to be particularly responsive to even you leaning against him.
That's fine. Jez just stays there for a while, and then...
Oi! I told you to shut your yap. I'll throw you in the cell.
Are you sure?
Sooner rather than later.
I mean, I'm still going there, so...
Well, that's enough back talk out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks over to you and presses the latch at your feet and sticks a key in the cuffs around your ankles and grabs Jez forcefully by the arm, kind of twisting your arm in an uncomfortable way because your hands are behind your back.
Okay, so how close? Well, Jeff is pretty close to me, huh?
Yeah.
How close to me does the guard get?
Like pretty fucking close. He's like a
I kick him in the ankle.
You're
like hard with both of my feet.
I should not condone this behavior.
It's difficult for you to do because your feet are pretty firmly like it's a very short lead on your ankles from the ground because of the shackles around your ankles. But you managed to get a swift kick into his ankle. And he kind of like not like he doesn't react too ridiculously because he's wearing a pretty hefty boot. But he yells, he goes, "Oi!" And his fellow guard emerges next to him and holds his sword to Marin's neck.
Marin just makes full eye contact.
Try it.
Mary makes full eye contact and leans a little bit forward so that it's actually pressing against his throat.
God.
I wouldn't try me. And I leave him alone.
The guard kind of chuckles. And he leans in, pressing the sword a little bit closer to Marin's neck. Just enough to draw the slightest hint of blood. And he goes, "You know, I'm a man of the law. But even I have an end to my patience."
Marin.
I don't think I stuttered.
Marin, please. I'm fine.
The guard straightens up and sheaths his sword. He kind of quickly wipes the drop of blood off the end of it before sheathing it. And he reaches down and unshackles Marin's feet before hoisting him up in the same kind of uncomfortable way as Jez, but a little more forcefully, twisting Marin's shoulder backwards as he does so. And he looks at the other guard and he's like, "Come on. Put these rats in their cages."
I could make a comment about the intelligence of rats, so...
He starts dragging Marin down the hallway, as much as... I don't know if Marin's, like, walking or is actually being dragged at this point, but...
Oh, he's definitely actually being dragged at this point.
Okay. Then the guard drags Marin down the hall. The other guard, not quite so roughly, guides Jez down the hallway after them. Though he does have a firm grip on their arm.
That's fine.
And they make their way down the hall to earlier to where you heard the pacing, but now there's no sound of life really.
Jess is humming.
It kind of reverberates in the hallway of the prison cell a little bit because it's so small and compact. And everything around you is just like stone. And you reach a line of small cells that are not quite as they don't look like they're built for long-term use. They still have like a hole in the ground for your business.
Wow, so kind.
With a with like a old nasty chamber pot kind of wedged into it. And then there is a very bare bones cot pressed up against the wall. But there's not a lot of like roaming space in these cells, and they are definitely only built for one person. So as you approach the first one, the first guard throws open the door and kind of throws Marin into it and slams the door behind it, pulling a ring of keys from his hip and locking Marin inside. The bars are they're crisscrossed so that there's no room to really, like, even if Marin tried, he could barely fit a hand through the bars. And it would be painful to do so. But he secures a heavy padlock on it that seems to kind of emit a faint glow as he turns the key in the lock before it settles against the gate like a normal padlock. They approach a second cell, and Jez, you are pushed into it a bit roughly, sorry. And the gate is slammed behind you. The same locking motion issued by the guard that was escorting you. And you...
Sorry.
Yeah?
Across from Marin, or like further down,
so
like next to?
It is next to Marin, but as you enter this cell, you quickly realize that the wall between Marin and Jez is completely solid stone. You cannot see each other. You could hear each other because the gate itself that closes this cell is just iron bars. But you cannot otherwise see each other.
That's fine.
There's a small trickle of light coming in from a window at the top of the cell. And that is from that small window, also covered in the same kind of crisscross bars, so that you can see that it is just now getting to really be like early in the day. So when you arrived, it was like breakfast, and now it's probably approaching around, like, I'd say 11 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, perfect, actually. Do the guards continue to hang out?
The guards seem to kind of act as if their job is done here, and they chuckle to each other and kind of start pacing down the hallway away from your cells. They don't stand post at your cells. They're pretty confident that now that you are locked away, you are firmly secured.
Okay. Once they're out of sight, Jez kind of like drops to Tea Leaf, welcome to the party.
She's here. It's unofficial familiar.
Drops to their knees in the middle of the cell on the floor, facing the window, and just for funsies, even though Marin can't see this, covers both their eyes, like puts their fingers like right over their eyebrows and like covers their eyes, and starts muttering prayers.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna go with that because there's other parts to it, but it's not relevant since Marin can't see it.
Did you say is there like a similar bench in here?
It's like a shoddy cot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Marin fucking just pushes himself off the floor and goes and fucking lays on that instead, facing the wall.
Okay. You are both still shocked. Oh, I don't know if Jez could cover their eyes because they are still shackled.
Oh, is it behind their back?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. They'll just close their eyes.
Okay.
Eh. You do what you do. You do what you can do.
Mm-hmm. So you guys wait and wait and wait some more. And it feels like a much longer stretch of time before you see presumably the small form of Peter accompanied by one of the guards from earlier. Kind of very slowly advancing towards the end of the hall where your cells are. Neither of you probably really notice it visually because Marin, you're facing the wall, and Jez, you're praying. I don't know how long their prayer ceremony really took place, but about an hour has passed since you first were put in this cell, and you can hear like the soft footfalls of your friend coming down the hall, accompanied by heavy, larger ones from the guard. And you hear the distinct sliding of a gate as he is put in a cell adjacent to yours, Jez. So it's Marin, Jez, and Peter's cell.
Okay.
You hear the guard mutter something before a click is heard, and it seems almost like you can hear shackles being moved. And then suddenly the guard is standing at your gate, Jez, and he bangs the hilt of his sword against the bars to get your attention. Oi, come here.
Okay. I'm gonna say, for the sake of this, Jez is still doing their thing. And surprisingly gracefully, for one without the use of their hands on the floor, gets up and goes to the bar. You
As
called.
you approach the bar, the militia officer unlocks it, and before opening the gate, he says, "Turn around."
It just does that, I guess. No, please.
Okay. As they turn, he grabs their shackles and unlocks them. Before you feel a new pair of shackles placed around your ankles, but your hands are left free. And then the guard pushes Jez back into their cell before closing the gate behind them and locking it. It's not really like a "I'm gonna push you to the ground" type.
Yeah, it's just like
push.
Get away
just
from
like,
the bars.
It's a get away from the open door.
Okay, cool.
You hear the same banging on your cell door, Marin, as the guard moves to yours and goes, "Oi, get up and come here."
Marin doesn't move, but also, can I have slowly done something in the past hour?
Okay, what is it?
The guards like weren't directly around, right?
No, they were pacing up and down the hall, basically.
So Marin's flexible. This has previously been established.
Yes.
Can he push his arms all the way down and pull his hands, still bound, over his feet from behind so that they're in front of him again?
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
That's it. He's gonna lay back down. He just
Okay.
wanted to be more comfortable.
Okay. That's fine. He would have gotten the hand thing still anyway, so like you're
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
The guard bangs one more time and yells louder, "Oi! Up!"
Nope.
Whatever, you bloody bastard. Starve to death then. And he kind of grumbles and wanders away. He doesn't really look too much into your cage. He doesn't notice that your cell. He doesn't really notice that you've repositioned your hand, so he's just assuming that you're living with your hands behind your back. And time passes. Is there anything in particular you want to know about your time spent in this cell? Because other than the occasional visit to push some mushy gruel into your cell, not much else happens.
I mean,
You can make perception checks, you can make investigation checks, you can talk about how your character acts in the cell, because an entire 24 hours is going to pass.
Marin doesn't really move. Just laying facing the wall. With his head cushioned between his arms. He doesn't eat, but every once in a while he does, when it's presented, he does get up to like nudge the tray with his foot back out into the hallway.
Okay.
And then just go back to where he was.
Okay. Jez?
Well,
I'm sorry, I actually don't even think he does that. I think he just leaves it.
Okay.
That's fine.
So by the...
I said that and then immediately was like, no, I don't think he actually gets up.
That's fine. So by the end of the day, the next day, I'm not skipping over your thing, Jazz, but I'm just saying by the end of the day next day, Marin has about 3 bowls, just kind of like gathering flies on the floor of his cell.
Fascinating.
A small rat that looks heavily malnourished skitters over into your cell, Marin, and starts digging into your food.
Cool.
Okay. Just probably spend some time just like out loud muttering maybe a little bit impolite comments about the guards, like and sleeps, because God, they weren't lying when they said they were fucking tired. Can they, so like I get that the window's up and it has the grate on it. Is it like above the bed? Like if you stood on something, could you see out of it? If you're not standing on something, can you see out of it?
If you pushed the cot away from the wall, which you can a little bit, but not much because it's actually chained to the wall. I like how that sound effect made it sound like you were pushing the bed away from the wall. And you kind of stood and leaned over, you could very nearly peak outside, but you're looking up at it from like a lower angle, so you're just kind of looking at the sky, and if anyone would happen to pass by, you might catch a glimpse of them, but this is a really dead part of town for pedestrians, so there's really no indication of life outside other than the twittering of birds that you can hear. Though that's also not super abundant as it is getting into the colder months.
Okay, yeah, so they probably do that for a while, get bored, pace a couple circles, try and stare out in the hallway and see as much as they can see, which is apparently not much, probably not much, but is there anybody else in here with us who might be a little bit more, willing to chat? Because apparently both of my party members are just dead to the world, which is fine.
I mean, I wouldn't say Peter's dead to the world. I wouldn't say Peter's dead to the world. You can actually hear, like, soft, sad violin music.
Oh no.
Coming from his cell.
Sad violin solos.
Indicating that his viol has been returned to him for, reasons unknown, but probably in some kind of good faith, noting his state. It kind of dies in and out over time, but you actually hear Peter's voice drift from his cell. Guys? I don't know if I can keep doing this. If this is what it's gonna be like. God, I miss my family. I miss the ocean. And I don't even know if I can go home. 'Cause it's not like I have a degree to my name. I feel like I'm still lost.
I mean, you can always go home. There is nothing stopping you, even this degree that you want. And as for the lost, it's not. That is a bad way to think about it. It's not. You should not focus where you think you are wanting to go. You should just enjoy what you do. And I 100% understand that what we just did was not enjoyable. I get that. But this is not all that we do. Yeah? We keep people safe sometimes. Sometimes.
Do we? Just so many people died in that circus.
But it was not the people
Kids.
that mattered to us.
How can you say that? They were children. They mattered to somebody.
I mean, maybe. We don't know where they come from. They could be orphans. They are not our kind.
I don't know what you mean by that. They were alive. And they were intelligent, real kids. And we were all that once. Maybe not intelligent, but you know, they were like us. Just a bunch of lost kids.
This is... I don't know. I personally now feel weird having this conversation without Detroit. No, it's not you. It's just like, oh man, I hope I'm not doing too much character or anything without Detroit here. I don't know, Peter. I can't tell you to make... I don't know what I say to make this better for you. But if you're alive, which you are, you can still continue going down whatever path you think you need to follow towards whatever goal, whether that is to home or to, I don't know, your degree. You can always go back to school. You can probably ask Ace about it when we get out of this. If Ace has gone back to normal and has stopped being a shady motherfucker. But...
Did he talk to you too?
I mean, he was doing the interview.
Right, I wasn't sure if it was the same for all of us.
Are you talking about that dead stare and pretending not to know us and...
Yeah. What the fuck was that?
Maybe he has evil twin who has been... not evil twin. Maybe he has a twin who has been mind cleaned by the government, and he lives down here to ask people questions and take notes. He did a really shitty job of it, but it's fine.
This was Ace.
I'm sorry, Marin, speak up.
Did Marin just say something?
I think
No,
you talked
really?
to the wall.
It's really... No, I could hear you, but like... Peter's 2 cells away, so he's like, Did Marin just say something? Hey, speak up! Just a little.
We're going deaf here.
I said it was Ace.
I am.
How do you know?
A good question.
Because I didn't talk to him at
Ooh.
all. And he still knew my name. He still knew all of my information. It was Ace, and he ignored me.
I mean, if he talked to you, he did not ignore you. It sounded like you ignore him, Marin.
Just maybe be a little less blunt.
I am not here to... This is the fact. I am not going to sugarcoat this. This is fact.
Well,
There is certain... I understand you guys have been part of the court less than I have been part of the court. And I am still kind of new to the court. But there are some things which we do not talk about. And there are some things that you have to pretend don't exist. This is the way of it. You guys were given that entire spiel at the beginning when you joined, yes? That you are now no longer existing, and... Yes? No?
I mean, yeah. Yeah. I didn't think he meant so literally, like... It feels like... It felt like outside of the home... He treated us like nothing. Like we weren't even people to him.
I mean, at this point, we are criminals, so... We do our time, we leave, and then we go... actually discuss what happens.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what if I'm ready to talk to him after this, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see, especially what happens with, you know, Jack and Nyx.
Jack promised us that Nyx will be okay. That we can do something for him. I think you'll find that Jack is not here. It should be obvious. I apologize for all of the dish noises.
You're good.
And we may return to base to find that Nyx is fine and good. Jack is very powerful cleric, so I do not think that we will have an issue. If Jack says that Nyx will be okay, then Nyx will be okay. I can say that again louder, Marin, if you refuse to acknowledge that comment.
Marin has stopped talking again. He only said like 3 things.
Yes.
Not talking again.
I'm aware. Jez is poking at Marin. Hard. You can't bottle your feelings. You can't. It's bad for you.
You don't know what he's doing in his cell. Masturbate.
Shut the fuck up.
No.
I definitely was thinking about that. And was like, I can't say that. This is serious.
I'm sorry. Broke my own atmosphere.
Fucking DM ruins the moment.
Do.
Wow.
Anyway, Peter kind of falls silent after that. I'm not sure if Jez wants to do anything else before I kind of fast forward to the morning.
That's fine.
Okay.
When it starts to get darker, Jez prays again. I don't know how strong half-elf and halfling senses are, so...
What language does Jez pray in Common or in Druidic or... I don't know what other languages they speak. Gnomish?
Gnomish? Yeah, it's probably Druidic. It's probably,
okay.
Yeah.
So there's no way either of them would understand anyway.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Can't eavesdrop on my prayers. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know you wanted all that
Marin
hot,
knows
juicy
a lot of languages.
goss. Does he know Druidic?
No.
Marin
didn't think so.
He knows a lot though.
We're all impressed, Marin.
Yeah.
So
he's also not listening anymore, so.
Oh, there are some other things that go down that they're welcome to roll for. If they really want. But I'm assuming not, given that Marin is being emo. And Detroit is not here.
I mean, I can roll for Peter to see if Peter... What kind of thing are you doing? Like, what do you think I should roll in order to perceive something about what, like, Jez's prayer?
I mean, hold on, let me PM you, because we talked about this briefly, and I definitely told you, I was like, hey, if you don't mention it, my first question is going to be, are they in their cells by themselves?
Yeah.
Okay. Obnoxious.
I remember you saying that to me.
Sorry for the typing noises.
You're good. I know you're looking up something.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep. So, I don't know what kind of role that would be. I feel like that's probably like a...
Do they make any sort of, like, sound, like, either, like, in reaction to it?
Probably. I mean...
Okay. So...
I have a particular scene in my head which I can relate. Like, it's from a show, and I literally watched this show the other night. But I can't do that. I'll send you a link to this particular section later if you're really curious, Em.
Okay. I don't think there'd be any way for really Peter to perceive this in particular.
Okay.
This type of prayer.
Okay. Cool.
So I think Jez is doing their own thing.
Yep.
Do they
I feel
clean
bad.
up at the end?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The cell is dirty enough. It's fine.
Okay. Do they leave any indication on themselves?
That is a good question. My gut reaction is yes, but I'm going to say no as an aspect of how they change the rituals based on company that could become present.
Okay. You could cast a certain spell to completely dissipate any evidence of it. Because you're about to take a long rest anyway.
Oh, that's true. I guess I could do that then, yeah. We're gonna go with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that anybody's gonna see, but we're gonna go with that. We're gonna go in full Monty. Woo!
Alrighty. So Jez does their nighttime prayer ritual and drifts off to sleep.
Yep.
Peter also has fallen silent as he dozes in his cell. And does Marin sleep?
I don't think so.
Okay. So time passes, and it is the next morning when you hear are rudely awakened by the loud clattering of the guard's sword against the door of your cell, Jez. And you hear it echoed on Peter's cell next to you. Actually, not Peter's cell, Marin's cell.
Yeah. I guess Jez like sits up. Roughly. Messy looking child.
It's the you are facing the kind of the guard that threatened Marin yesterday, Jez. Marin, you if you react at all to the rude awakening, or I guess not awakening, but morning call, it is a new it's a new Jez. It's a new guard who looks a bit younger. He actually doesn't look as nearly as gruff as either of the two guards. He does look a bit tired though. As it is about 7 a.m. as these guards awake you. And he opens your cell door and he's like, okay, step forward. You are being summoned. And the gruff guard turns to you, Jez, and says a similar thing. So,
okay.
Come on, get a move on.
Yeah.
I don't have all day.
Just...
And you have no belongings, so there really should be no reason taking this long.
This is... Yeah, just... maybe makes a little bit of an annoyed hissing noise. And... gets up and goes towards the guard. And... probably just folds their arms over their chest and looks very displeased with being awake at this hour of the morning.
He kind of nudges you out, and Marin, how do you respond to the younger guard's call?
Did he open the cell door?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. Marin stays still for another minute, but this time does get up.
Mm-hmm.
And walk over.
The guard kind of sniffs a little, and holds up a pair of ankle shackles, and he goes, I'm gonna have to do this. Sorry, I guess. And he shackles your ankles, but removes your hand gauntlets. And as he does this, he takes off your hand gauntlets and then goes down to shackle your ankles. And you see over his head, Jack is standing unbound by anything, waiting in the hall. He's dressed a bit unusually for him. Instead of his normal kind of lavish but casual wear. I don't know how to describe Jack's fashion other than that, where it's definitely always kind of fine clothing, but not over the top dressed up. Instead of his normal adventuring gear, he's dressed as like in full cleric robes. You notice the mark of kind of the symbol of a goddess embroidered on the tabard of his robe, and the robes are kind of a silvery blue color.
Fancy, fancy. Would this be somebody that we know?
Maybe. Depending on your religion check, if you'd like to make one, but then I have to find one, so...
Okay, I'll make life easy for you and not.
Yeah. I'll have an actual hashed out goddess for him literally by next session, and I will just straight up tell you what it is. But as of right now, he's just wearing cleric's robes.
Fancy. Okay.
His normally double braided hair is completely let down flat, so it's just long platinum blonde hair that goes down to practically his waist.
What a beautiful boy.
Jack is short for an elf, but not really, like, probably like an inch or two shorter than you, Marin, so still taller than you, Jazz.
Wow. Okay.
Because Marin's like 5'6", right? Wiz?
Yes.
Okay. And Jez is 5'1", so he's around like 5'3", 5'4".
Yeah, Marin's like 5'6", 5'7".
Okay, that's what I figured. Yeah, so you're taller than him, Marin. And he kind of smiles a bit when he sees the two of you. Sorry, I'm stretching. And gives a gentle wave before the guards kind of flank the two of you. And his smile kind of fades into a more serious expression, and he looks at you, Marin, with a bit of a grim, solemn gaze, mingled with pity. And he turns around, gesturing, and goes, "Come quickly. We don't have a lot of time to spare." You notice as the two of you walk away that Peter has not joined you.
Oh. Alrighty then. Okay. Jez probably... Actually, Jez is gonna question Jack about that. Just kind of like stop wherever... Just like stop, I guess, in front of Jack, and then turn and look towards...
Jack is leading you, so he's in
Oh.
front of you. It's the two guards kind of like flanking you a bit behind you, and then Jack is leading the party.
So we've already started moving, that's okay. Yeah. Still kind of like slows to a stop and then is like, and Peter? It's not... This is important for all of us, yeah?
Peter is not... He will not be joining us for this. I approached him after Ace talked with me about his interrogation in particular. And it's been decided that Peter is not in a proper place right now to participate.
And yet...
He may be kept here for another day of observation.
This sounds like a bad idea, but... Okay.
It is... Jez, it's
not
okay.
your decision, so... It's fine.
It was... It was not our decision alone.
Just probably just starts walking again. We're gonna keep it going, I guess, now.
Yes, quickly. As I said, time is quite of the essence.
Then you can walk and tell us what we are doing, yeah?
Yes, I can. You see, resuscitation magic is not quite as simple as one might think. Magic, of course, is wondrous in many ways and has many capabilities, but there are limitations, and playing with life and death is a very dangerous game, as you might understand. Jez, I know your views on life and death are a bit different than mine, but nonetheless, I'm sure you understand that it's not quite as easy as snapping your fingers and suddenly what once was dead is now alive again.
Mm-hmm.
Everything requires sacrifice and challenge. And so, if I'm to bring Nyx back, I need the two of you to help me. And we need to convince him to come back. We need to show him that he has a choice, and there is a chance of return. But I have to warn you, there's also a chance of failure. It's very slim, and with your sacrifices and your persuasion and your what you have to offer, it will increase our chances of success, should they be convincing enough. But there is a risk. And I have to be sure that it's one you're all willing to take.
You can save your breath, I've read it.
Well, Jez?
For our kind, there is no chance that should not be taken.
Well, then we will proceed. Unshackle them, please. And, you guys, have been, as that conversation was going on, you were led to the end of the hallway and back upstairs to where you were led to that room where you saw Jack and Nyx disappear into initially. The room in particular that you've been led to is what looks to be basically like an infirmary. But it's a very primitive infirmary. It looks like basically like a big stone slab, and you see a white sheet covering a figure that you can only deduce is Nyx, especially judging by the long recognizable tail that kind of peeks out from under the blanket. And there seems to be like a medicine cabinet off to the one side. It's a big kind of, it's not like a wall propped up medicine cabinet, it's an older fashioned one where it's actually more of a hutch full of different medicinal herbs and medicines. There's a small stool off to the side and a couple of other cots. There's about 2 or 3 cots laid out. It's what kind of a makeshift military infirmary would look like, where it's not quite fully packed with things prepared to do like major surgery or anything like that. But if someone were to have been arrested, injured, like say they got in a fight and one of them was badly injured, you could give someone stitches or patch them up or help like set a few bones.
Yeah.
Very much like that. And that is where the guards unshackle your legs, and with a nod from Jack, they exit the room behind you. There is a small kind of plated window, like almost like a peephole size. Not a peephole, that's way too small, but it's only big enough to see that the guards are standing outside of the door and at post, before Jack walks over and pulls a small curtain down over the square window. And he pulls a hood over his head and starts to mutter a prayer under his breath. So to kind of break outside of the moment exactly, and to explain exactly what you have to do, it's the resurrection ritual requires 3 people to offer a contribution to the ritual. And you are going to have to make a check associated with what you offer up it has to be essentially what it boils down to is it has to be something that can be a physical manifestation of something. I believe, if I'm describing this correctly, Wiz, you can
Yes.
correct me if
You're
I'm
right.
wrong, but it does have to be some kind of physical manifestation of something to be offered. But it can be something like a prayer. Like, that is still something physical, and you are that's the example that they give in the book.
Really?
For example, praying to the god of the devout. Fallen
Okay.
character may require an intelligence
Yeah.
check.
For like yeah, specifically devout characters.
Yeah, but like both Jack and Jez have gods.
Yes. No, I know that.
Yeah. But like really try to think about how your offering can be connected to Nyx, because this is basically like how effective your contribution is. So if there's something in mind that you might think would be more potent or powerful or influential with bringing Nyx back, then that is something that you should try to do, because I basically have say on whether or not like you have advantage or disadvantage, or what the check is, although there is like a set check. But basically Jack has started the resurrection spell, and now is the time to convince Nyx to come back.
Also, I just want to add, it doesn't have to be strictly appealing to like persuading him to come back.
Yeah.
Like other methods can be used, like offering him something, or again, like praying to a god or something like that.
Did that on purpose. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just said persuasion a lot, but like it's
Yeah, I knew what you meant. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
yeah. It's not gonna be like a
For
persuasion
Nat
check.
and all listening.
Mm-hmm. So the three of you stand there, and in front of you lies the cover body of Nyx. And after raising his hood, Jack takes a step forward and pulls back the sheet, pulling it until it slips from Nyx's still figure and slides to the floor. Jack just letting it fall. He turns to the two of you and places a hand on Nyx's shoulder, giving you kind of a weak smile. It doesn't have a lot of... It's not a smile of joy or happiness. It's pained and pitiful. I have lost friends in the past. And in all my years, it never gets easier to see them like this. And then he takes his hand off Nick and takes your hand Jez, and takes your hand Marin, and squeezes them reassuringly. We will bring him back. I will not let you experience what I have felt. Not this time. He steps to the foot of Nyx's bed and puts his hands together and tilts his head upwards, and a soft, radiant glow begins to emit from his hands. He mutters to himself, and reaches into a small pouch that he carries in the front of his robe and places a small gem at the foot of Nyx before placing his hands on his ankles, keeping his head tilted upwards. As he continues to mutter, and you watch a dim light kind of enter Nyx, as if it is illuminating his veins, as if it's entering his bloodstream and breathing this impression of life into his body, but it's not real, not yet. The three of you are the only ones who can make it real. As his heart still lies dormant in his chest. His breath quiet and silent. Not quiet. There's nothing to pump air into his lungs yet.
Jez probably stands a minute, takes in this, and looks to Marin, almost like, I guess, offering the first, I'm gonna say, sacrifice to him, because they understand that Marin, he's a lot closer to Nyx than they are. But if Marin's not gonna do anything, I can go first. I don't care.
Marin has just been standing, staring at Nyx. He looks over and makes eye contact with you, Jez, first time. a day and a half. And just kind of very slightly nods back to Nyx, kind of signaling that you can go.
Okay. With that, just steps closer to the table. Probably like moves around the table so that they're on the other side of it, and so across from Marin, I guess. If Jack is at the end of the table and Marin is on one side, then Joe's gonna be on the other. Pulling. I am so mad, Em, that you also are using a rock, because I've literally thought about this for a week. And I also am using a rock.
No, it's so in Jack's rock is not his sacrifice.
Okay. Huh.
I'm incorporating the fact that the original spell of resurrection requires you to have a diamond worth at least like 1,000 GP.
Okay. Okay.
That's me kind of incorporating that.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Yeah, Jez pulls from their pocket I guess a fine silver chain with a red garnet at the end, like hanging off of it, kind of like a teardrop shape on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what my family is doing. Like puts it around Nyx's neck. So it's like, yeah. And this is, I guess, I don't know if I'm supposed to, like, do you want me to tell you what I think it symbolizes, things like that?
Yeah. You
You
can explain why, what Jez's reasoning is behind.
Okay, so one of the things, so different stones mean different things, right? Garnet is often associated with a passion for something, friendship, loyalty to a cause, devotion, and has like a minor meaning about being a guiding type element, particularly in like dream realms. So I'm gonna run with that and go that it's kind of like alternate plane type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Nyx, for all of his shortcomings, has been like nothing but like friendly and loyal to the things that the group has done. He's like Jez, of the four of them, so of like the group, Jez feels closest to Nyx. They're kind of he's kind of this same boat as Jez, kind of like an odd one out with a lot of things that they don't really want to talk about to a lot of people, but still like willing to accept all of their being Jez's, you know, quirks and habits and just like the kind of shit they pull. And it's I don't know how to put this. I don't know. It's just a call to, like, I guess remember and bring back somebody that was doing their best in the darkness that exists in the world.
Does Jez say anything to Nyx as they place this around his neck and I guess kind of internally call upon those thoughts?
I don't know that it's, like, out loud. It's probably all internal. Some, like, you know, when you, I don't know if you pray or ever attempted to pray, but it's like something similar to that. That it's like, dear Nyx, come back. But that sounds really, really dumb. But with all the sincerity, with they do something similar with all sincerity, like call on that in a town, in a situation, in this kind of crazy turn of events, he still made the best of it and was the best that that he could be, and stuck to his guns, I guess.
Okay. One moment. I guess let me look at. Oh my goodness. What should I consider this? So I think I'm going to ask you to make yeah, that's what I was. Since you're kind of utilizing this stone and Jez's like personal kind of attunement to the natural and like the significance of this stone, I'm going to have you make a nature check
Okay.
to see if this is a successful attempt to will Nyx back to life.
Okay. That is a natural 19. 20, 25? Wait. Yeah, 25.
Okay. As you do this and place this pendant around Nyx's neck, you kind of do you touch with Nyx, like, beyond grazing his skin when you place this necklace around his neck, do you, like, place your hand on him anywhere else? His right hand. As you kind of hold on to his beast hand, you watch as this light that's radiating through him pulses for a second, and it's brief and fleeting, but you almost feel a warmth for a second from his hand before it kind of fades once more, and the light continues to stream through his body. You hear Jack kind of pauses in his muttering to smile at you, Jez. That was very good. Jack is going to take a step forward. He's going to look at Marin, almost as if seeking confirmation that it's okay for him to make a move.
Yeah, Baron, he doesn't nod, he's more focused on Nyx, but he kind of looks from Jack to then Nyx.
Jack takes this as a confirmation and walks towards Nyx's head before kneeling next to him and muttering a prayer in Elvish.
I can understand him.
Mm-hmm. He's talking about a river and the energy that he feels flowing through Nyx, the desire and drive to keep going despite obstacles, despite forks in the path, despite unseen turns of events. The river doesn't stop flowing. It finds a way to go around, over, under. It finds a way to keep going. And he tells Nyx that he can feel the spirit of that river in Nyx. He can tell that this is just a fork in the path. And it might not be the direction he wanted to go in, but there's something else to see. And he brings a small vial of water from his pouch and he tilts it into Nyx's mouth. It kind of dribbles a bit from the corner of his lips, but Jack gently closes his chin. And that light pulses again. Ooh. There we go. Just to put it out there, I'm making Jack make a religion check, as he is essentially channeling his goddess. And you watch as that light pulses again, and the wounds on Nyx's body begin to close. But he still doesn't stir. And Jack kind of brushes Nyx's hair back from his forehead for a moment and presses his palm to his cheek before stepping back and waiting for Marin to move forward.
Marin hesitates for a step. So digging in the front pocket of his pants, which is like the only thing that isn't completely obliterated by the lightning that and out this strip of fabric. It seems to be a little bit dulled, but it was probably once pretty brightly colored with like reds and purples, whites, and is very reminiscent of a carnival tent. Seems to maybe have been a tattered piece of one at some point. He takes it and walks up to Nyx, closest to him. Which one would that be?
The left hand would be closest to him, so the non-beast hand.
All right.
What I'm imagining is Jez is sitting on the opposite side, and Jack is kind of standing next to them, watching as Marin approaches.
Then Marin takes his tiefling hand and wraps the piece of cloth bracelet around his wrist, holds his hand, I am with you every time. I was not planning on losing you yet. I can't describe how much you have come to mean to me in 9 years. You have saved my life more times than I can count. I love you, my best friend. Please. Save me one last time. And Marin leans down and kisses him. And then pulls away to just hold it.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to say persuasion. And you have advantage on the roll.
Okay. 19. So 31.
As Marin pulls away from Nyx, the light pulses one more time before fading entirely from his body.
Marin squeezes his hand harder.
A moment passes. And another moment. And it drags on for what feels like an eternity. Before Jazz, Marin, the both of you who are holding on to his hand feel the slightest twinge of muscle before his fingers curl around your hands. And in this suffocatingly quiet, small, dank, ugly little room in the prison of a town that claims to be your home, but do hear like strangers. You hear the breath of your friend as he inhales. And it's like you can hear his heartbeat in his chest as it begins to rise and fall with new breath. And his hold on your hand gets tighter, more secure, not painful, but reassuring. As you watch his eyes flicker open and his pupils dilate to adjust the light.
Marin, I don't think has like actually cried this entire time. He bursts out sobbing and just wraps his arms all the way around Nyx.
I love you too. And he wraps his arm around you, Marin, and he looks over at you, Jez, after a moment of just burying his face in Marin's shoulder. And then he pulls you to him as well. And Jack you feel Jack place a hand on your shoulder, reassuringly. And tension melts away from this room and is filled with a familiar sense of warmth and familiarity and comfort. As you embrace your revived friend. And Ace opens the door. Time to go home. That's where I'm going to end the session. We went a little over time. I apologize. A lengthy task, reviving the dead. But I want to thank my players for being here. Even Detroit, who's here in spirit.
Thanks.
Yeah. Quite get to everything, but we'll have next week for that. So
Yeah.
until then, have a good night.
Good night.
See you guys tomorrow. Next week. I'll see some of you.